And hello again, and here we are back in my drive for the next episode about my Mark II project. It's quite windy today, so hopefully this mic will prevent you from hearing too much of the wind. So very briefly then, since the last video I've done a few more things on the bike. And so here at the front of the bike I've fitted the ZRX front mudguard. That's very easy because it's all standard ZRX front end. I have resisted the temptation to get this mudguard painted to match the rest of the bike because I'm still on the lookout for a suitable front cockpit fairing for the bike. An easy option would be to fit one from a ZRX 1200 because it goes straight on the bike, but I don't think that'll look quite right. Another option would be to fit the more angular cockpit fairing from a Z1R, but again I don't think that'll look quite right, so I'm still looking for something out there that will work perfectly with the style of the Mark II. Next up then, I have changed all the fasteners on the yokes and on the engine mounts here for new stainless steel polished fasteners from ProBolt. Very expensive, but hopefully looks pretty cool. Coming around the front of the bike here, I've also now had these billet engine mounts that Jeff made for me. I've had them hard anodized at Camcoat and now they're fitted on the bike. Once again, of course, with new stainless steel fasteners, all looking pretty good. And so in the next week or so there's quite a lot going on with the Mark II. I should be getting my new Tirozzi rear sets from Italy. Lead time's about 4 weeks, it's now been 5 weeks, and so far I've heard nothing at all, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Perhaps they're on holiday in Italy, who knows. But yeah, I'm just waiting for those parts to arrive. Similarly, I'm waiting for a phone call from Maxton Suspension to tell me my custom built shocks are now finished and I can go and collect them from the factory, because the factory isn't too far away from me. It's in Frodsham in Cheshire, about half an hour from me, so I've decided to go and get it and I'm going to have a look around the factory while I'm there. I don't think I can do any filming there, but you know, you never know, you never know. I've also got to work out a way to mount the front headlamp on the bike. And that sounds easy, but it turns out it's not so easy at all. Similarly, fitting the new Maxton shocks to the bike is also not so easy. And so, when it comes to the headlamp brackets, I had two things that I wanted. First of all, they had to look right with the more angular style of the Mark II. And secondly, I wanted some kind of brackets so that I can fit them without having to drop the stanchions through the forks beforehand, because that's a real pain to do. So after looking around, I found a suitable pair of brackets from these guys here, from Alchemy Parts. I've bought from them before and they're a decent place. Now they are a little bit more expensive than most places you find on eBay and so on, but then again the quality is also a little bit higher as well. So anyway, let's get one of these out of here and I'll show you what they're like. So here they are, looking quite good. So let me bring the camera a bit closer and I'll show you why I bought them. And here they are. I quite like the angular design. I think it'll suit the bike quite well. But also at the back here, these clamps open up like so you can fit them to the stanchions without, as I say, dropping the stanchions. So I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, let's get them on the bike and see how they look. And so with the mounts in place, let's see how it works with the headlamp. I don't yet have the correct fasteners for this headlamp, but never mind. So yeah, it should look something like that. However, I have found a problem. And that problem is that these clamps are bolted up here at the back and they stick out quite a long way from the back of the stanchion. And that means that if I turn these handlebars even a little bit, these brackets are going to smash into my lovely fuel tank, so that's not good, is it? I can't leave it like that. I have tried positioning these clamps a bit higher, a bit lower, but it still hits. So what can we do? And so now I've tried to pivot this bracket as much as I can, and it's still not enough. These still hit the tank, only by a little bit, maybe by a mil, but a mil's enough to smash this paintwork in, so we can't use these brackets, I'm afraid. I guess I could maybe, let me try something, I could maybe position them way down here at the bottom, which will look awful. Let's have a look. We'll put them down here and then pivot it like that. What will that do? What will that do? No, that doesn't work either. That's no good. But if I pivot it all the way I can this way to get this little part of the bracket out of the way of the tank, then the gap between the two brackets is too narrow to take a headlamp, so that's no good either. So this is why I often find myself with lots of spare parts that I buy for bikes, and guess what, I can't use them. So I think what we might have to do is have a rethink. So yeah, it's a shame actually, because I quite like these, and that's 60 odd pounds, 65 pounds wasted. Well, not really wasted. I mean, I'm sure I can find a use for these somewhere along the line, because they are quite nice brackets. So, lesson learnt. Let's move on and we'll find another solution. And so suddenly the idea of using these rather ugly brackets becomes a bit more appealing. So this one actually should fit without too many problems, because it's made to fit the front end of the ZRX 1200. It's also got rubber mounts in it as well, along with lots of other ugly additions that I don't need. But maybe I can use this as a sort of guide, so I can replicate this but remove all the ugly bits and leave on the good bits, but we'll see. And so I've now loosely bolted on this original ZRX bracket to the front of the bike. And as you can see, it was meant to be hidden behind a big cockpit fairing, because this is so ugly, it's unreal. Look at this, you can't have that on the front of the bike being visible. However, it does have its uses. So what I can do is take this bracket off and use it to work out where the mounting points are when I make a new bracket to fit on the bike. I can't move the bike, it's stuck here, but I can take this bracket along to Jeff, or Jeff the welder, to say, look, maybe something like this, like, where are we? Like this, which looks a lot nicer, but make the mounting points mimic this bracket here. Not an easy thing to do, it might cost quite a lot of money, but I think that's my best solution at the moment. Phew. Right, so you find me drilling holes in my new headlamp bracket that I just got back from Jeff the welder. Here it is, we'll see it on the bike in a minute. I'm just going to finish off opening out some holes so it'll fit on the bike. So I'll come back when I've done that. And so now, here's that bracket I just received back from Jeff Haslam. He's done a great job as usual, and if you recall, here's the big ugly version from a ZXR 1200. Can't fit that, but we use that as a template to make this rather slimmed down version. Very simple, but it's not easy to make, because it had to be, you know, exactly the same as the standard version when it comes to the mounts, the angles and so on. So hopefully it's done a good job there. I just now drilled the holes, which hopefully match the holes in the yokes, and so let's see if it fits. And so here's a quick test fit of the bracket on the yokes, and it doesn't quite fit right, because these lower holes here don't align with the threaded holes in the lower yoke, and that's okay, because on the original bracket each of the holes had a thick rubber grommet in them, which actually extends things down a bit. So all I've got to do is pack out this top mount here with some rubber washers, or neoprene washers, which I've got in a box somewhere, and that will lower this bracket down so everything aligns. What I've also got to do is make up a couple of spaces to move this out of the way. That needs to be like that, because the original bracket had a step at the base here, so obviously I need to mimic that step, and I do that by putting a couple of simple spaces behind the lower mount, something like that. So next then, once that's fitted okay, I've got to take this bracket to Jeff's workshop where we can drill it, and he can make the appropriate ears to bolt onto here. But as ever, it's not so simple. And that's because my bracket needs to mimic or look like this bracket here, which is from a Kawasaki Z1000. You can see the ears or brackets are offset quite a lot. They've got to be bending them before they shoot outwards, and I've got to mimic that on my bracket, because if you look at a standard Z1 headlamp, it's 7 inches in diameter. So we take this old bracket here with its offset, that easily accommodates that bracket. However, it obviously won't. This won't accommodate the headlamp. It's far too narrow. So somehow we have to make the aluminium ears that project forward and bolt these two brackets here offset, and that's not easy. I mean, one easy way is just to try and fit some spaces behind it, but it looked awful. It also might interfere with the sides of the stanchions, because you can see here this, where's it gone, this red one, this one here, so it curves, so it misses the stanchions. I've got to maybe mimic that. Now, I knew about that when we made it, but I've not yet come up with an idea to make it look good and work well. And now, as you can see, I tried a bit of CAD, a bit of cardboard edit design, by making these two ears out of cardboard and just trying them out for size. I've worked out that this approximate shape is what I need to position a 7-inch headlamp perfectly in front of the forks, not too far away and not too close. I've also realised by making these something I didn't appreciate before, and that is that because this bracket here slopes down, if I make these ears the way I would normally make them, so that this back here is in line with the bracket, it looks really odd because it's out of line. It's not parallel with the fork stanchions. So knowing that, I'll have to make them differently so that when they're on the bike, the back of this bracket here is in line and parallel with the line of the stanchions. That's a useful learning point. I've also found out that to fit the headlamp as I want to, these two ears have to be moved out by about 40mm each side, and that's quite a lot. So I've dug out these two spaces from my box of spaces, and combined these are 40mm. So all I've got to do in theory is make 4 of these, that sort of length, put them behind these ears, which will make out of, say, I don't know, 5mm alloy plate, and away we go. Except it would look awful. I'm not happy with that idea. I think putting a big space between this bracket and the ears is just not a good look at all. So I've come up with a different idea. And that idea is that rather than using a 5mm plate with 2 40mm spaces behind it to bolt to the bracket, instead we'll do it like this. Same bracket, but this time we'll make this ear from 40mm thick billet alloy, and so it'll have to be machined on Jess Miller to make this shape. Therefore the back of the ear will indeed be 40mm, but the front, the main part of it, will only be 5mm. That way I don't need to have these ugly spaces. What I can also do is we can thread these 2 holes, therefore the bolts can go in from the inside, and you'll see no bolts visible on the outside, which is pretty cool, I think. And so to that end I ordered some suitable billet alloy, which has just arrived. It's over here, and I got lucky with this blooming big chunk here is over 50mm thick, which is more than I need, and I think it's 9 inches in diameter, which again is more than we need. So I reckon I can make 2 of these ears easily from this big chunk of alloy, which is quite heavy. I got quite lucky with this because I got it from eBay the other day, and it was only £22 with postage included, which is a real bargain because this stuff is quite expensive now. And I think it's because it's an odd size, an odd shape, maybe just an offcut. So I got lucky with that. I'm quite lucky to have that for the price. So now what I'll do is, later on this week when I go and see Jeff, I'll take him that chunk of billet alloy along with my slightly better diagram. I'll actually work out the correct dimensions to the millimetre, and he can get on with it when he gets time and machine that big chunk of alloy into 2 really nice headlamp brackets. So moving on then, exciting times, because yesterday I took a trip over to Frodsham in Cheshire, not too far away from me, where I collected my Maxton Suspension for the bike. And here is one of those Maxton Suspension shocks, beautiful bit of kit. I've studied them quite carefully, and I think they are better made than the K-Tex I've got on the 1170. That said, they are more expensive. I did make a mistake in the last video about the bike when I said that these cost around £930, and they do. But that price is without the tax, without the VAT. You add 20% VAT and these cost me £1,170. Still cheaper than Olin's and probably a little bit cheaper than Nitron. But what I like is that you can just drive over there and talk to the guys. I could talk to the production manager, you know, ask him a few questions about some different shocks I've got, see if they can help me with that. So yeah, pretty happy with them. So let's get it on the bike. But not so quick, not so quick. There is a problem, as there always is with my projects, and that problem is with the upper shock mount. The eyelet here is the biggest one they do, I think, pretty much. It's 14mm, but unfortunately the modifications we've made to widen the shock mount so that they align up with the now wider ZXR swing arm on the bike. This thing here is 18mm, so those shocks do not fit the bike on the top mount, which is a bit of a disappointment. Now I could go back and say, can you change it, can you know, machine it out for me, but I don't want to do that. What I want to do instead is make something a bit better than this. This is a bit of a, I don't know, it's not as neat as I would like. And one thing we could do is that this thing here on the outer diameter, if you can see that, it might be from a ZRX 1200, I'm not sure, but it's 18mm. So what I need to do really is machine that down to 14mm and all as well. Only slight problem with that is, if I can find my vern, which I can't, it's only about 5mm in thickness, so I've got to take off 2mm of the thickness of this bolt. Well, not bolt, what do you call it, some weird looking thing, some weird nut, and I'm not sure that's going to leave it strong enough to take the weight of the bike. I don't want to sort of be riding it, hit a big bump and the damn thing breaks. So it's not the end of the world, but I just can't show you the shocks fitted to the bike just yet. So that's that. Oh, and by the way, the shocks, or the shock that's on the bike right now, came off the bike originally. They're from a ZXR 1200. And they fit. So you think, hang on, why did they fit? It's because those shocks were modified, the mounts were modified to fit that 18mm thick extension, this thing here, no problem. So when I tried to fit those shocks on my Kawasaki Z650 here, they were too loose, and I thought, oh, what's going on there? And I didn't know that they'd been modified to 18mm. So yeah, that's a bit of a blow, but I don't care, I don't really care. This is such a nice bit of kit. I'm very pleased with these. Just a pity I can't fit them just yet, but you know, there's always problems with one-off bikes, so it's not the end of the world. We'll just have to re-engineer these extension pieces which move the shock mounts further out by about, I don't know, not sure how far it is, about maybe an inch, 25mm, something like that. So that's something we also have to work on in the next few days. And now just a quick test fit of the new Maxton shocks on the bike. We have already modified these top mounts to hopefully make them fit just right in the bike. I'll show you a photograph of before and after of what we've done. As you can see, we've slimmed it down and also shortened it by about 2mm, because this shock here, when I tried it out on the bike, wasn't quite perpendicular to the ground. So shortened that by 2mm, it's now spot on. We also shortened that side by 2mm, and guess what? It's not quite right yet. And so now I move the camera behind the bike, and it is difficult to see, but I think this right hand shock is now okay, but the left hand shock is still not quite right. I need to take maybe 1 or 2mm from the length of this space at the top here to get it perfectly perpendicular with the bike. So next time I go and see Jeff, I'll take that spacer with me, knock off 2mm, and hopefully all will be well. When that's done, next time I go to cam coat, I'll take these spacers with me and get them coated in some kind of black hard-wearing coat. I don't think you can anodise stainless steel, but I'm not sure. But if not, I'll either get them powder coated or ceramically coated, so that they're not such an eyesore, because right now they're kind of shiny silver stainless steel and they stand out like a sore thumb on the bike, which we don't want. So once they're black, I think it'll look a lot better on the bike. And now here we are, it's the next day, and I'm just back from Jeff's workshop where he kindly machined down this left-hand shock spacer by 2mm, and so now both shocks are on the bike just perfectly. I also received this morning my new titanium bolts, which I've used here on the lower shock mounts, so all good. And so that's about it for this week, because I was hoping to have the front headlamp mount finished by now, but that's not happening. Jeff's really busy and he won't be able to machine up those aluminium ears for another week or so. So can't do that. Haven't yet got my Tarozzi rear sets. They're nowhere to be seen from Italy. And I'm also still waiting for my handlebar controls, both the brake and clutch master cylinders, to arrive from Hell. They should be here this week, but not here just yet. So I think this video is quite long enough. And as you can see, doing simple jobs like fitting new shocks and a headlamp aren't so simple when you're building a completely one-off bike. So anyway, that's it for now. So thanks for watching and cheers.